Hi, this is Mark with your analysis for the week commencing the 31st of March. I'm not planning on doing a great deal this week. We have the bank holiday Monday, which is a no-no for me because many of certainly all the European traders will be missing, and often you find on the bank holiday that you get limited moves or you get very silly moves, but both are technically difficult to predict. And on the subject of technical analysis, I was asked last week by long-term member Julian if I thought that the markets had changed much, and certainly I believe my analysis and technique at the moment has changed. You have to learn to adapt to changing circumstances. Usually it's a changing market pattern, but at the moment news is playing a far bigger part in my trading than in the past. I used to kind of pay attention to red flag news, but generally that was it. But the fundamentals, and for example this weekend, the poor, unfortunate people who had money invested in Cypriot banks have found out that not only have they been robbed of 40% of their money, it could now be 60%, in which case the euro could well tumble again at the market open. And also be careful because statistically, I don't know why, but over the last few years, the weekends when the clocks changed, gap trading was less reliable than usual. So all things being equal, be very, very careful at the market open. If the market takes this news of the Greek Cypriot situation where these poor people have been hammered even further, then they take that to be a bad thing. It could gap down and the gaps may not close tomorrow morning due to lack of liquidity. However, areas to look, area of his interest. What I will do, I won't trade Monday, I will have a look Tuesday, Wednesday, it's NFP Friday as well, and which is why I am very hesitant. But I will look at the main areas, and just as I've done in recent weeks, I'm only going to look to trade from daily charts or weekly, and I'm going to be looking at major areas. And for example, on the euro pound here, the obvious area was 85.20, 8500. We had a major break last week, and I said one of the options last week, if price broke and closed below this area, you look for a breakout, a pullback and a fall, which we've got. So the logical area is back up here, anywhere around 8500 for a pullback with a view to a further short. The Euro USD on a monthly, and the candle's due to close now. It won't quite be a 5-8 cross, but this does look bearish, and we could be on for a run back down to 2500 or certainly back down to this 200 EMA. Same pair on a weekly, and price stopped thanks to Robbie, one of the members. We were discussing this the other day. Strong area of support here at 28.20, so that's one area. If price does continue to tumble, then you look for a pullback possibly to 28.20 for a further drop. Personally, I prefer a pullback all the way back up here at the 28.75, 2900 area. It was the major area. We had the breakdown last week, and then we had the pullback, and therefore many of you caught this one. If you missed it, as I say, I prefer a pullback. Or, as Robbie said, if price does drop, then you look around 28.20. This is the dollar Swissy. And the dollar Swissy last week, finally, we broke above this 9500 area, came back down again, all got very messy. If we're going to get a move tomorrow, I will be interested at 9400 on Tuesday, and that's because we've got these EMAs here. The 55 will continue to roll up a little bit, so that is the main line in the sand for a pullback for a long. British pound on a monthly is beginning to look like a pin bar reversal candle. However, you don't just trade off candlesticks. It is a clue that price may be about to go back up, but at the moment I am still only interested to short, and as with last week, 53.30, 53.50 area up here is where I am interested for potential short. Now what happened last week, you could have traded simply the bounces like we do in the summer. Price kept coming up to this 52.30 area, bouncing back down again, and simply bobbling along here. But personally I prefer a bigger pullback. Already shown you the euro pound. Aussie dollar, said last week I would be interested to short at 1.0500, and that trade worked very well. Priorities at the moment is long, and therefore 1.03680, 70 area is the area for pullback for a potential further long. This is last week's move. This was the candle here that came up almost to the pips of 1.0500 and then promptly fell away back down to 10400. And as I said, 103.80 is the main area for me. for multiple reasons. We do have a fib in the area as well, but you've got this confluence of all the EMAs on this daily chart, and we have previous major support and resistance, and that is the area then for me. Aussie dollar yen, said in the midweek update that we'd missed this 97.40 2 or 3 times recently, and therefore looked to 97.70, nearly came down to this area. Bit tricky with the yens. There's a big speech coming up this week, and we could be on for a pullback. There's clues on the dollar yen that we could be on for a bit of a reversal. 97.40, still interested, but I'm not going to place a forward order. I would only trade it if I am sat there at the time, and this is that 4-hour chart. This is the 97.40, 97.70, 97.40 just below. Euro yen bobbling along the 120.75. I showed you during the week how if you'd been trading this, there was the chance to make some profit on this pair, but it was very limited again. And again, it's a little bit wishy-washy for me. I'm going to leave that for now. This is the dollar yen. We did get a bit of a break of a trend line, and once again, price bobbled along sideways. But as I said, just be careful with this. It's way outside the Bollinger Bands on a monthly, and there's a very, very important speeches and news announcements this week with the dollar yen. So after a big, big move, we could be on for at least a pullback. And in that case, I still prefer this 90.20 all the way back down here. Final one, the loonie, the CAD. I was saying last week, 1020 was not really my thing. I'm really hoping for a pullback all the way down here, around 100.30 now, which is this weekly 55 EMA, which was so important for the last few years, and its parity 1000. So if it gets down there, I would definitely be looking to long the CAD. Final option, of course, if it breaks and closes below, clearly closes on a daily candle, then you think about a short. As I said at the beginning, I'm not planning on doing a great deal this week. Bank holiday Mondays are not a good time, especially with this Cypriot news situation, and then an AFP on Friday. So if you're going to trade carefully, don't go mad, and have a good week.